Yeah.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the inaugural first episode of a time killer for me and Alex we're calling a 15-minute time limit. The
Yes.
concept behind this is to delve mildly deep, just kind of wade in the shallow water on a topic that, most people don't really get or understand or kind of correct the record about something. Is that a good way to put it, Alex?
Well, I figure we're gonna have mass amounts of different topics.
Yeah.
That's not a sentence that makes sense, but and for all you YouTube people normally know us for doing deathmatch talks. So this is gonna kind of be like everything and everything else in between. So it's
Yeah,
gonna be fairly interesting.
this started as like you and me were talking about the topic that we're going to talk about, and we were
Yeah.
like, man, this is really cool, we got to talk about it, but it's not deathmatch stuff,
Yeah. Not at all.
and I
Not at all.
watch more than death matches.
I do too. I watch almost everything. I'm a little behind. COVID's kind of fucked my time limits up, but we might have to bleep that out. But I'm a little behind.
Damn, you know what, if we're going to like monetize a YouTube video, we can't swear.
Yeah, thanks, Steve.
What do you
Just boop
think?
it.
Okay,
Hey, you
11.
could just cut it.
We'll see.
All right.
For me, it started off as I just see a lot of stuff on Twitter of people talking about specifically Japanese wrestling, which I've always been more into Japanese wrestling than American wrestling, just because it kind of,
Same.
you have to search a little bit, and it's more fun that way. I don't know. It just kind of hit me that way.
Dude, that's where you find gems. Like I
Yeah.
just seen a gift the other day, and this is off topic, but it was like a fucking condo tag match with who the fuck was it? Ibushi. Who else? The one dude from Dragon Gate. And I was like, yo, this is on El Dorado show. I might have this on DVD. I don't. So I am looking for it. So if you find it, I'm looking for it.
That's a whole topic. We're gonna talk about tapes one day, like just the idea of like lost media. That's a whole episode in itself. But yeah, for me, there's a lot of people like I see sometimes people be like, wow, because BJW is going great. I saw Kasai do this thing. It's like Kasai's not in BJW, but he's on the Osaka show. Yeah, but that's not, he's contracted. There's a way that the contracts and sponsorships work. Blah, 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 blah. So,
This is almost like an information dump for people who really who might watch Japanese wrestling, but they don't really know too many of the backstories, or they know too many some of the like side notes or inner workings. So this is kind of like our like homage to like everything Japanese wrestling that you normally wouldn't know, I guess.
Yeah.
Talk about.
Yeah, like making the sausage, I guess that they would call it, right? So, okay, so let's get started. Zero-1. Zero-1 was started by Shinya Hashimoto in 2002. I'm not going to go over the whole history of Zero-1, but Zero-1 is essentially an indie in Japan. They don't draw very big. Their biggest show of the year might be 1,000 people. You know what I mean? So let's go through it. And what you mostly know him for is Otani, Masato Tanaka, Yuji Hino, and a couple other things. And they're a real kind of off-the-wall company that will book almost anything. Like you might see an exploding barbed wire bat match for the Boom title. You might see some
more so the last couple of years, I
Joshi
guess.
stuff. And I always thought, I mean, I knew, but it's like, why do they literally book almost anything? Like there's no real direction for the company.
It's been like that for a while.
And here's why. So let's go through it really quickly. March 2nd, 2020. All wrestling in Japan shut down in late March of 2020, and it affected a lot of companies differently. So I'm going to go through. I'm going to try to be as efficient as possible.
Yep.
March 2nd. All of this comes from Tokyo Sports. I'm not revealing dirt. This isn't gossip and rumors. This is Tokyo Sports. Not yet.
Not yet.
In the future. So March 2nd, 2020, Zero-1 announces that the company is going to reshuffle. They've been bought by a new company, IFD. This came after a lot of rumors that were started by the Voices of Wrestling Podcast Network that BJW and Zero-1 were completely cash broke. We can talk about, and we've talked about BJW before, but that is true. BJW went completely cash broke. And Zero-1 at this point, early March 2020, was also cash broke. And Wrestle-1 also went completely cash broke bankrupt on April 1st of 2020. So that gives you an idea of the state of wrestling in Japan.
I didn't even know they were still running, so you're not spreading any shocking news.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And actually, you know, it should be said, Muto said that after Wrestle One went bankrupt, Muto said they never once turned a profit. Like from day
That's crazy.
one, they lost money on the first show, but they were a television company. But that's a different story. That's a
Yeah,
whole different story.
it's another
So
topic.
the company that bought Zero-1, IFD, they were a data analytics company, if that matters. June 29th, 2020, basically pretty much all of the stars leave the company. Kohei Sato, Ito, Hidaka, Tatsuhito, Takaiwa, which he's wrestling for Freedoms now, doing as a freelancer now.
Mhm.
But people don't understand the freelance versus contract thing, right? For instance, when you see Takeda wrestling, Takeda is a freelancer. He doesn't have a contract to anybody. So he can control his own merchandise. You and me, we talked to Michael Elgin. I don't know if you were there actually, but I talked to Michael Elgin at one of the Kuroken Hall shows, and he was talking about
Okay.
how when he was contracted to New Japan, he couldn't control any of his merch money. If he sold a shirt, he didn't see a dime from it, right?
Yep.
And by being a freelancer, he can control his merch money, he can control his bookings, all of this stuff. Versus if I'm contracted to, we'll say, BJW, if I do a show for Zero-1, because BJW doesn't have a show that day, I get a booking money and BJW also gets a booking money. I get my X minus 20% or whatever the agreement is
Mhm.
between the companies. So a lot of wrestlers, so when these guys leave Zero-1, Zero-1 is giving them a monthly salary. They're giving them insurance, pension plans. They're paying their 401k, basically, is what it would be. They might be providing housing. It's all between the wrestler and the company. But when you're contracted, there's all of these things that go into it. You are an employee. That means you might be tasked with like the dojo boys. They're tasked with doing the laundry, cooking the
Mhm.
meals for the training sessions, all of this kind of stuff. Driving the bus, whatever. Ito Hidaka, he announces that he will focus on an entertainment organizing group called Sean Capture. And all of these guys will still wrestle for Zero-1, but they're no longer contracted. Okay. July 5th, they have the first post-COVID show at Shinkiba. July 11th, Zero-1 holds a press conference, and they announced that they will now be run by a Mr. Shincho. Mr. Shincho was Onita's money guy, like not accountant, but he handled the money for Onita from 93 till his retirement in 2017. And the idea was that this guy knows how to run independent business. Okay. One day we'll talk about Onita, but this is going to come down to sponsorships. This guy knows how to organize sponsor-based shows. I'll get into Okay, I should do it now because it's going to be a whole thing. Sponsor-based shows are where I own a company, I own a car dealership, or perfect one. Alex wrestled on a Freedom show in Hiroshima. That
Yes.
show was sponsored by a cell phone company.
Yep.
And you saw it, right?
Yeah.
All of the seats had a thing for the cell phone company. They had a
Mhm.
table where they would sell the cell phone plans. Miedo and Ciclope, they won some trophy given by the cell phone company. And the idea is just, I'm Freedoms. You're going to pay for the show. The sponsor is going to pay for whatever it is. You might rent the
Mhm.
building. You might provide the ring. You might give us just a cash payment. We will then do a show and draw fans, and these fans will be exposed to your product, whatever that may be.
Yep.
BJW is very famous for doing this, and they'll have like 20 sponsors on one show. So I'll get to that in 1 second. So and Onita shows for the past forever have been run by sponsors, basically. People saying, I like Onita, and he's going to draw people to my fish market or my whatever it may be, right? So at this point, July 11th, Shincho takes over. Zero-1 becomes a property of Daiko Holdings Group. Japan is owned by Holdings Group. Everything is run by Holdings Group. It's a big story, but basically there are X amount of holdings groups that own many things. So, like for instance, 7-Eleven is a holdings group. They
Yep.
own banks, investment
Everything.
firms, restaurants, car dealerships. You can't just anything that you can think of, right? So Zero-1 is now property of the Dyco Holdings Group. We now own this. This is like a circus to us. This is the Harlem Globetrotters or whatever. This is a brand that is owned by the Dyco Holdings Group, right? So they announced the new system. July 11th, they announced that the system is going to be make Zero-1 with fans. That's going to be the motto of it. Zero-1 is now 100% sponsor based. All of their money is going to come from sponsorships. Go ahead, Alex. Do you want to say anything?
Yeah, no, I mean, that's not the 0-1 everybody kind of knows. So it makes it a weird situation because, as you know, like we're talking, our recollection of 0-1 is like the early 2000s, Shinya Hashimoto, a legit company that was running pay-per-view shows,
Had
such
television.
and such. Yeah, even in the mid 2000s, like you were discussing earlier, it was kind of weird where it was like, they'll use anybody. Like, and I always wondered that when you were talking about it, I'm always like, yeah, well, every time somebody goes to Japan from another country, they end up on a 0-1 show. Why is that? And it was like, oh, now it makes sense because now they're utilizing certain resources because they're no longer the company you once thought they were.
If I sponsor a 0-1 show, like, okay, we'll go back to the Freedom Show. We were on the bus and I just turned to you and I said, hey, the sponsor just announced, because I followed the sponsor on Twitter, the sponsor just announced the stipulation of the match. Freedoms didn't, the sponsor did. The sponsor wanted a 300 light tube match. So you had to do a 300 light tube match. And so if I sponsor a 0-1 show and I say, hey, I really like Bob Sapp. Well, Bob Sapp wants $5,000. Well, all right, I'll give you $5,000, but I want Bob Sapp to come in and knock out a guy. All right, let's get Bob Sapp on the phone.
Very strange.
That's how it works. You know what I mean? So, so the quote from the article is that it is said that players can purchase not only goods, when they say players, they mean fans.
Yeah.
Literally me. My uncle dies and I get a big thing. I can just go to 0-1 and I can sponsor a show. Okay. It said that fans can purchase not only goods, but also personal training rights. I want Otani to teach me how to boot scrape for 2 hours and the right to decide cards. Yeah. Fans can now just book cards if they want to, which leads us to
that's awesome.
A couple things. Basically, Shincho announces some weird news. He doesn't say exactly what's going on, but he tells a story, which we'll talk about it some other day, that Onita got this Shincho guy $500,000 into debt. And he basically says that Dyco Holdings are covering up a debt scheme of a very similar proportion. And he says if 0-1 is going to go forward, they need to confront this debt, that 0-1 has a lot of debt. And someone asked me, who does 0-1 owe money to? The holdings groups. And we won't get into the mob and how the mob runs things. Like, that's a whole other story itself. But you just keep running up a credit card bill. It just keeps running up and running up, and it just doesn't stop. So we're going to end the story November 3rd. I went to a 0-1 Shrine show, and as soon as I walked in, I was like, this is a very strange show. It's at a shrine. Think of like where they do sumo, where they have like temples.
The Fire Festival.
Like the Fire Festival, yeah. And basically this show was commissioned by the tourism board of this shrine, right? They wanted to bring, 500 people in for tourism, basically.
Yeah.
They had Akira Maeda came in and did a little 10-minute talk. They had vendors as far as the eye could see. People selling cell phone cases. Megumi Kudo came in and she's doing photos. They have tons of food vendors. They have all of these just vendors that you like, people selling masks with like Goofy and
crazy.
fucking Mickey Mouse on them and stuff. Just all kinds of vendors, 30 vendors. Each of these vendors pays for a table, $50, $100, I don't know, but they all pay for a table. And this is how they finance this show, right? Also on the show, they have like a boxing match, and you and me talked about it. It was terrible. They have this like work shoot tag team boxing match. and it was done to promote a future boxing show on some other card next week or something. I don't even know. And I actually talked to the manager of one of the boxers, and she told me about that. Yeah, we paid money to get on this show so we can hold up our banner and sell tickets to the boxing show and shit. On this show, they have a tag title change. Quiet Storm and Yuji Hino, they win the tag titles. It's a big deal. Lots of pictures. Big. The show itself was big. They had Aja Kong. They had tons of legends. It was just a big, big, big show. Immediately after the show, Yuji Hino announces he's leaving the company. They're vacating the tag team, the tag titles. And the reason why I bring that up is because it shows like they don't give a shit about these titles. It's just a prop to keep the sponsor happy. Like, oh, they just changed the titles on my show, and it's a big deal. You know, it's all pomp and circumstance. And that's basically it. We're at this point now. Zero-1 has sold their training dojo to Oz Academy, is what it looks like. They're starting Zero-1 Girls. It's going to be run by Megumi Kudo and Kaoru Ozaki, the Oz, Aja Jakong. So they've sold their training dojo, is what it looks like. At the very least, they're renting it out. Yuji Hino has left the company. So the only two contracted guys left are Masato Tanaka and Shinjiro Otani. And that is a story of 0-1, 15-minute time limit, go.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it's crazy. So they sold their dojo to essentially a Joshi promotion.
That's what it looks like. They're starting 0-1 Girls, and it's going to be run by Oz. And they don't have contracted wrestlers anymore, so what do we need a dojo for?
And such a downfall from what we knew 0-1 as. I mean, I guess you could, and we've had conversation about this when it comes to other promotions where it's like, at one point in Puro, like the Yakuza pretty much ran a bunch of shit. Like, and to know that like companies are at the point where they have to have sponsored shows because they don't have money. I mean, granted, COVID's kind of taken the hit on everybody.
A lot of this is COVID, but it's like if you were already struggling, this just knocked you out.
Yeah, no, 100%. So they're not. It's almost like 0-1's not even in existence if you think about it. It's kind of just like a spot show.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. It's like what I compared it to was the Harlem Globetrotters.
Yeah.
Hey, we're gonna put on a show, and we're gonna have clapping, and we're gonna bring in a legend to give a little speech, and we'll draw 400 or 500 people to your whatever it is. It's like when you have it's like And One is same thing. Hey, we're gonna do a bunch of tricks at your car dealership opening.
And it's like so you were, and this is just to reiterate the conversation. So you were saying that Otani and Tanaka still have contracts technically, right?
Yeah, they're the only wrestlers with contracts, but I don't know what they do. Like they might do a lot of other stuff, for all I know. I don't know.
It's just you have two guys who really have this like immense background, you know what I mean? And you would think like Hino kind of did, they would just jump off the boat while it's sinking. But, I guess it's just a cultural thing where it's like if they're going to go down, they're going to go down with that ship because, I mean, Otani's been with the company since, 2003?
Like, yeah.
And, Tanaka's been with the company for a little bit too. It's been a while. Granted, the company itself is past their formative years. I mean, I haven't really heard too much from 0-1, and that's a conversation that kind of started this whole topic. It was
it's all about like the reason is because they haven't built anything. Like it's like, what are you gonna go on to? Like if I read you 3 cards from 3 years, it's gonna be 3 completely different main events, 3 completely different directions. So it's like and what it comes down to is as a wrestling company, they don't really function, I mean,
at all.
Yeah. I mean, they change tag titles because the sponsor wants to see it, and then they vacate the titles the next day, basically.
I mean, you don't. Yeah. Well, I mean, for the sake of the fact, like years back, we would still hear about 0-1, pretty regularly.
Yeah.
Now it's kind of like very sparse. Like here and there, you don't really hear about 0-1 at all. The only reason that 0-1 still stayed kind of in my range was because when we were over there, Dickinson and Justice wrestled for the company. So I
Yeah.
was like, oh, 0-1's still around. But like talking to you, it's just like, no, they're really not. They're just kind of like hanging on to the last threads. It's like, in my head, it's like, all right, Tanaka and Otani, what's the move now? Like, are you just going to stick around and just kind of collect that payday, or are you going to find other pastures? Because, there's always companies like All Japan and Noah who kind of like almost take in the
Well,
refugees of other companies.
but Noah even is I
It
mean,
is.
that's a whole other thing. But Noah got bought by the DDT parent company, and now
Mm-hmm.
they're like under the DDT brand, and they're gonna just merge eventually, and just
That's so
Noah's gonna be gone.
crazy.
It what it goes down to is this: like this is what I want to communicate to the fans by being here. And I've known this for a long time. Most people's exposure to the Japanese scene is some YouTube videos, some gifs on Twitter, and then they're like legends. Oh, I saw that guy in ECW one time, and this and that. The Japanese scene is oversaturated. It I don't want to say it's dying. I'm not trying to make it seem that dire, but it is so oversaturated. Let me go through really quickly. These are the companies that are running just Tokyo this month. You ready? We have
Go.
here, and I'm only going to do men's companies. I'm not even going to do fucking,
Oh, that would be a
women's
whole
companies.
nother. Woo.
BJW, New Japan, All Japan, Osaka Pro,
Mm-hmm.
Freedoms, GPS Company, K1 is kind of, they're like MMA, Dragon Gate,
Yeah.
DDT, ZST, Noah, All Japan, I might have said, 0-1. You have Gambear Pro, West Exit Wrestling, you have Triple Six, J Internship, you have Noah, Basara, you have TTT, you have Body Pro, Ryuku Gun, Triple Six. I mean, it is absolutely fucking insane. And then you have 10 Ryu fucking legend projects. Nita indie shows. You have
Yeah.
it's insane. It would be like if the Philly market had 22 companies running each month.
Yeah. As being an outsider of the situation, I thought that was fucking cool. Like
Yeah,
thinking
yeah.
about it financially, it's not cool. But like, coming in and knowing you're doing in 3 days, there's like 27 shows happening within that one city. It was like, dude, that's the craziest shit ever. But like you said, there's kind of tiers to everything where it's
Yeah.
like, and it's at the end of the day, it's like 0-1 at one point was like a top tier. Now it's like, what were we, like 4 or
But
5
during that
levels
time,
down?
there was maybe eight companies. Now there's literally like 30 something companies,
Yeah.
and
No, you got a point.
they're all trying to draw from the same fan base, and it's tough when you have, for instance, death matches. You have two companies drawing from the deathmatch fan base, and me personally, I have my breaking limit. There's some deathmatch shows coming up I'm not going to. Like, money, time, just
Dude,
kind
that's
of
why
like,
fans are very segregated when it comes to companies.
yeah.
Like you would know best. Like you have fans that are super dedicated to Freedoms, fans that are super dedicated to BJW and New Japan, so forth and so forth. But it's just like, where does that fall for 0-1? Do they even have fans anymore? Is it more just
So
like, oh, there's this free show happening, let's just go?
0-1 shows, I would say half the audience of any given 0-1 show are built upon who are they bringing in? Are they bringing in Onita for a thing? Are they bringing in Akebono to do a talk battle? Like, that is what's going to draw that extra little fan base. Their Shinkiba shows are the 120 diehards.
Yeah.
Their Kuroken Hall shows are the guys who want to see, oh, they're bringing in Sekimoto. I kind of want to see
Yeah.
that. So that'll pop through, a couple hundred people. But by and large, like their other business is built around whatever they can scramble for. Oh, we're gonna do
Yeah.
Aja Kong versus Kudo in a talk battle, and that's gonna draw some people.
Yeah, well, I was on, and I told you it was a couple weeks back. I was on a YouTube like black hole where I seen a match from 2 years ago where it was like Yoshitsune against Otani, and I was like, wait, I haven't seen that guy wrestle in like 6 years.
Yeah.
I was like, where's he coming from? So it's like they're just putting random matches together. And at this point, it's just like, well, whatever, you know what I mean? Whatever sponsor, maybe there was a sponsor who's like, I haven't seen this guy wrestle in 6 years. Let's
So
bring him in for a match.
I'll tell a story. It involves death matches. It involves a guy that we like. I mean, I'm kind of like exposing the sausage a little bit, but when Tremont went over to Japan, he wrestled, I believe it was 2 shows with Onita, and during one of them, it was going to be on the beach. I think it was Odaiba Beach or something, but it was going to be a big beach show, and it was a sponsor show. And Onita was like, "Yeah, in the main event, I'm gonna wrestle Tremont, and I'm guessing DJ Hyde and Chainsaw Tony and stuff."
Yeah.
And the sponsor literally looked at him and said, "Who the fuck are they?" You know what I mean? And he was like, "No, no, 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 no. You're wrestling these other guys that I would way rather see." So Onita did 2 matches on that show. Like, he did the 6-man Tremont match, and then immediately after, there was another 6-man exploding rope match and shit. You
Get
know what
the
I mean?
what?
Yeah, people don't really know that, and
Dude, that's Yakuza talk all the way. We paid BJW to have this show. You got to come to this town, have this show. This
Yeah.
is exactly what it needs to be. I need this exact amount of money from this show. Like, whoa.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I didn't pay for this Tremont. What's a Matt Tremont? I have no idea. I paid for all of this type of stuff. So, and right
Yeah.
now, Big Japan, they're sponsored right now by REO Staff. REO Staff is making basically temperature checking boxes that in the year 2020 that's a big business. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
so REO Staff sponsors BJW. They're running a huge show today in Osaka. They've got Kasai on the show. The main event is going to be Sekimoto versus Okabayashi. You better believe this is a big show because of this sponsorship. That they say, "Hey, we want these guys. This is going to
Yeah.
draw the big thing for a sponsorship deal," But it's like, if you run a business, would you turn this money down?
No, I mean, I don't know, man. I guess not, because at the end of the day, would they even really be around technically if they didn't take this money? Maybe Zero-1 would be completely dead by now.
Oh, that
I mean, if you
absolutely.
think about it, because they have to pay Otani's salary or whatever. They have to pay Tanaka's contract. They have to pay both their contract fees.
He
So if
just
you're
had
thinking about that,
twins.
yeah, 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 he did. And I'm just thinking about, like, all right, so they had these influx of guys. Like Sekimoto at one point was pretty regular on Zero-1.
Yeah.
Kawada at one point was pretty regular on Zero-1. And at some point they faded. This was before Kawada took the full-fledged retirement. At some point they faded. So it's like it had to be going or happen, or that whole situation had to be happening all the way back then, to where like they were running through their money problems, because all these dudes were coming in for a little bit, and then it seemed like, oh, they're pushing them, and then it just kind of faded really fast.
Yeah, Sekimoto, he had a thing where I think he was the BJW strong champ, or the 0-1 whatever
Yeah,
heavyweight
yeah,
championship they have.
heavyweight champion.
And he was just in for a 3-month thing. He won the title from Hino,
Crazy.
had the matches, and then he drops the title
Yep.
to Hino. And the idea is, okay, that'll pop, that'll get us X amount of regular fans, because it's all about regular fans. We need
Yeah.
these people to come twice a month, and be fans of our guys and buy merchandise.
And like you said, that's hard to do when you have 27 different companies running in, like, or 27 different wrestling shows running in a span of 3 days, especially with a lot more than half of those shows being from different companies. It's like, it's
Yeah.
really hard.
I mean, right now, Sekimoto. So there are only a couple guys that are real draws on the indies, and I would say that Sekimoto is. And that means if I book Sekimoto in the Tokyo area, I'm going to draw an extra 150 fans that I normally wouldn't draw, as long as it's the right match that people want to see. You know what I mean? And but he's expensive, and it's a risk and it's a gamble, and you're hoping that extra 100 fans are going to come and like what they see and stick around. But like you said, the next month he's wrestling the All Japan Tag League. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And they might just
Well,
yeah.
when you're an indie guy, man, that's just the way it goes. I guess Japan's a little bit different, and you and me have discussed that whole topic. It's like, it's a little bit different, but it's like you're gonna see Sekimoto here and there, even though he's technically, is he still contracted to BJW?
Yes.
I mean, he still has enough stroke.
He is that company. Like, they make, I would say, like, if you saw a pie chart of all the the BJW income. It's like, okay, here's our shows, here's our little television deals, here's our merchandise. Sekimoto's booking fees would be enough of a sliver that you would notice it. You'd be like, whoa, they make a lot of money off of Sekimoto booking fees.
Yeah.
So, and he's the golden goose. Like, he gets whatever he wants. He used to do fucking death matches. And he had an offer from Noah, and he went to the office and said, I'm not doing them anymore. If you want me to stay here, I'm not doing them. And I want a raise, and I want this, and blah, blah, blah. And BJW gave it to him.
He got it.
Yeah.
And like, all right, so at the end of the day, where does 0-1 go from here? Like, what do you think's gonna happen with 0-1? Because if you were to ask me personally, I'd be like, I mean, you can only fade away at this point. If you're not a full-fledged, technically you're not a company that's kind of running like stories. You're not really running angles like that. Everything's kind of like a spot show. Like, you're just going to run through money. You're going to run into more debt. Eventually Otani and Tanaka are going to see like, we got to get out of here before the boat completely sinks and the company's just going to go into the dumps.
30-second warning. I think this is what I think. I think that Otani and Tanaka love this. It's a guaranteed check. They don't have to worry about booking. They just wake up in the morning, punch clock. Otani is 61 or fucking 62.
That's crazy.
I know.
Time flies.
Tanaka's not young. He's not going to go off and main event the fucking Tokyo Dome. This is their golden goose, and I think that they should use this time to build whatever's going to take them to post-wrestling. And 0-1 will just end one day. And that is 15-minute time limit.
Let's all cry. Let's cry for RIP 0-1 in the next 2 years.
Yeah, I mean, if we talk anymore, we're breaking our. Yeah,
we're breaking our rule. It's a 15-minute time limit, Steve. That's all it is. Hands off.
Okay.
You want to lead everybody out?
So thank you guys for watching. Check us out. We also have the World of Deathmatch on the GCW Patreon, where we talk about all kinds of fun shit. Alex, it has a good mind for the business, is what they always say.
I guess. I mean, I'm not going to say this idea was mine, but whatever. I'm hoping we could bust some more of these out because we have a few more topics that, I want to get deep in on, especially some Taka Michinoku. But that's for another day. We'll save that. Y'all got to come back for that one.
So, all right. We'll see you guys later. Peace out.